الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. And thank you so much for the honor of giving me this opportunity to say a few words and to share a few thoughts in these months of mourning the martyrs of Karbala. And may we, inshallah, meet them on the other side when we pass out of this world, inshallah. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about trends that are going on with regard to what's happening with Shia Islam in the world today. So this is just to raise awareness among our sisters and inshallah to strengthen our minds and our hearts in our practice of the way of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. I was going to start just a little bit to first talk about how the infiltration of Shi'i communities has, by, as an example, America and the British, has gone on for many decades, even as early as the 19th century. What I'm going to start off by mentioning is something that was called the Oud bequest, and I will spell it in there. The Oud bequest. A bequest is a grant or some money, and the place of Oud was a place in India. The location was actually called Awad, or sometimes it was called Oud, and this was a Shi'i region of India. It was run or ruled over by royal families who were called...
Would you please write the term?
Yes, so I just wrote Oud bequest there, and the location in India, which is now it's now called Uttar Pradesh. No. In fact, funnily enough, the British named it that. It was not named by Indian people. Uttar Pradesh. It used to be a very successful and wealthy area that was run by Shia royal families, and the rulers were called Nawabs. As we know, the British took over the rule of India step by step through a company they set up called the East India Company. And the East India Company went to India first of all for trade, and eventually it took over the management of many areas in India, the management of the economy, and the collection of taxes. So the British went in with this East India Company and said to the Nawabs, we have a much more efficient way, of managing your economy, and we can manage it for you. And so the Nawabs said, okay, that's very good. If you can manage things for us and make it more efficient so that we can collect taxes better, then please go ahead and do that for us. But this is a trick that the British have used, especially in the 19th century, to actually move into Muslim countries to take over those countries. So they did the same in Egypt. Egypt's economy in the 19th century was weak. And the British went in to Egypt and they said, we can help you to improve your economy. And the Egyptians said, in fact, it was the Turks who were ruling in Egypt at the time. So the Turkish pashas or sultans, they said, okay, yes, please help us manage our economy. Of course, this then gave the British access to those economies. It gave them access to information And what the British have done to keep control of those areas is to collect information about people living in those areas. They collect information about what people believe, what books they read, you know, what they feel emotional about, who are the important families, what are the arguments and disputes going on. So the British have always been very good at collecting information about Muslims, and they systematically write documents and books about it so that they can understand better how to cause division and how to gain control over different groups in the area. So they did the same with Iraq as well. We know that there has been a long connection of trade between India and Iraq. We can see quite a lot of Indian influences even in Iraqi culture, and maybe the opposite. We can see Iraqi culture maybe influenced Indian culture as well. So, so this particular, I mean, I read about this particular thing called the Oud bequest, and I was quite shocked to see that basically the British had control of this grant of money that they had forced the Nawabs of India to give them. In fact, they said to the Nawabs, we want to take a loan from you, but they never gave that loan back. And the Nawabs made certain conditions on giving that loan. They said, we will give you this money on condition that some of the money goes to the poor Shia of the Atabat. So some of this money should go to Najaf, Karbala, Kadhimiya, and Samarra. This was how the British managed to actually become managers of, you know, the managers of the affairs of Shi'i Muslims in India and in Iraq. You know, it's quite shocking when we think that the charity money that Shia Muslims in India were distributing in the Atabat, this charity money was being managed by the British. And this meant, so this was around 1850. So you can look this up later, inshallah. I'm sure there will also be information in Arabic around it, about it as well. So the British were in Iraq, and they did not give the money directly to the fuqara, you know, and the poor people of the Atabat. They selected mujtahids to give this money to the poor people. So this meant that the British were then also in charge of selecting mujtahids that they wanted to work with them. And so, of course, then they would have control over, you know, which mujtahids are going to have influence and control over the Shia of Iraq. And in fact, it was through this charity money that a lot of the Iraqi tribes also became Shia. So some of the points, some of the statistics say that this Oud bequest continued from 1850 to 1903. So every year there was some money given by the Nawabs of India via the British to Iraq, and they say 6 million rupees through the British were given to Najaf and Karbala. Okay, so yeah, so a little bit again into the history, and there's a couple of other things I will also talk about, but this is, I'm talking about this just to, number one, provide awareness of how the British have interfered, basically, in matters that should only have been for Muslims to manage. So again, the facts say that the Oud bequest originated in a loan which the East India Company extracted in 1825 from Ghazi ad-Din Haydar, King of Awadh, in order to finance its war in Nepal. So they took the British forced him to hand over this money because they were fighting a war in Nepal, and they wanted, they forced him to hand over this money. It says it was 10 million rupees, and it was never repaid. So this is another thing the British do, is they take loans or they make promises to hand over control of land, or this is what they did in India particularly. They took over the land, and then they promised to either pay for that land, and they never paid for it, or they promised to hand it over and they never handed it over. So we have a long history of experience with the British of them breaking promises, so making promises to Muslims, different Muslim groups, and then they will break that promise. And then, or else what they do is they work, if there are two sides that are disputing with each other, they work with both of those sides together. They will provide arms to both sides, and they will pretend to each side that they are that side's friend. So this is, and this continues today. So yeah, and then just another issue is that in 1867, the British introduced an important change in the distribution of the Oud bequest, and they set up what was called an Indian fund to benefit poor Indian residents of Najaf and Karbala. This Indian fund was managed by the Nawab Iqbal ad-Dawla of Awadh ruling family, in return for services he had given the British during the 1856 or 1857 uprising in India, which is a famous uprising where people in India attempted to throw out the British, but they didn't succeed in 1857. They didn't succeed, but this is a famous uprising. So look at this point. We have a Nawab who Iqbal ad-Dawla, who gave services to the British at the time that Indians were trying to rise up against the British and throw them out of India. So this is why I'm sure everyone is very well aware, if we want to look at why Muslim lands are weak today and why Muslims are in a weak position today, it's not just because of oppression from the US or oppression from the British, it is from collaboration of Muslims with the US and with Britain. And so we have widespread corruption. Let's just talk about the Shia, because we're focusing on the Shia. We have widespread corruption among Shia personalities who look like they are working for the cause of Tashayyu, when in actual fact they are also working for the objectives of the West. And so we have a problem with the collaboration of Shia with the objectives of the West. Like I said, there's an example of a university which teaches classes on LGBT, and it promotes the LGBT agenda, but this is a university that has as its mission statement a statement from Imam Ali alayhi salam. So I know someone who, a professor there, who objected to the promotion of the LGBT agenda, and he was sacked for doing that. So we have some very serious violations of Islam going on in Shi'i academia and among, you know, not just prominent Shia, but it can be Shia from all walks of life. We also have, you know, when we really look into colonial history, you know, it can be quite shocking and surprising to see how accepting of being ruled by the British so many Shia are. You know, they're particularly in the West. We have, I would say, the Shia are very passive. Most of the Shia, we might have small groups of Shia who are, you know, campaigning against domination by the US and Britain, or campaigning against manipulation and control. But the majority of the Shia, unfortunately, are very inactive, and they are fully integrated into Western companies. They will be working for, you know, Western banks, and you know, Western oil companies, and they will be proud of it. That's the thing. Okay, maybe you have no choice to say work for BP, British Petroleum. Maybe you have no choice. That's one thing. But to be proud that you're working for this company shows how unaware Shia are that they have become mentally enslaved to Western domination. We have a situation in Karbala now where there is a proposal to build an airport in Karbala, which sounds fantastic. You know, when I heard, oh wow, they're going to build an airport in Karbala, mashallah, how exciting. The Shia are really getting their act together. They are really, you know, becoming stronger and more established. But then I found out that the contract for the building of the airport is going to go to a French company. So we are going to have a French company, and the French, again, they have a long colonial history as in the Muslim world. We know that they ruled over Algeria very brutally, so we have Shia Muslims who are handing over control to ex-colonial, or I call them neo-colonial, which means new colonial, as in we have a new type of colonialism going on. So, you know, we have Shia who are handing over control to colonialists, but it's a new type of colonialism. Okay, so somebody might say, well, what's wrong with that? The French have got the expertise, they know how to run it. We can't see a problem with that. We don't have the resources in Iraq, we don't have the training. But it's not just about building the airport. It is also, what the French are also going to have control over is information on everybody who goes through that airport. They are going to have the right to collect information of everybody who travels through that airport. So they are in effect going to be able to monitor, you know, Shi'i populations, which is, and then they can actually sell that information onto intelligence agencies. And you know, so this is what is going on. Now, one of my questions when I heard about this was, I mean, people are saying, oh, well, we don't, like I said, we don't have the expertise, we don't have the engineers, you know, they know best how to build an airport. Why do the Muslims not have the expertise and engineers? In fact, we know that Iraq is famous for its engineers. And so, you know, if Iraq, as an example, or other Muslim countries are so weak as to not have the expertise that they have to hand over control to Western countries, that is a problem. Do they not feel the shame of having to do that? This is how the British took over control, and the Americans took over control of the oil revenues in Arabia. The Saudi royal family was perfectly happy to hand over the management of the oil fields in Arabia for a little bit of salary. The West were making massive profits, taking the oil out of the ground and refining it, and the Arabs thought they got a good deal and they're making a lot of money. Actually, they were making you know, what was basically pocket money. I mean, a very small amount of money from what they could have made. On top of that, like I say, they're handing over control. Americans are going to be in there, British are going to be in there, and they are going to be, you know, in a position to collect information on what is going on in Arabia. Like I said at the beginning of the talk, a big thing with the British is the collection of information about what is going on over the territories that they are ruling over. I am now going to just move on to another issue. This is one issue where we have corruption going on between Muslims and the West. And we have another area where corruption is going on, which is the what you might want to call the interfaith industry. So you may be aware, especially around the time of Muharram and everything, there are a lot of interfaith events. Now, there was an interesting article written by someone who he's now passed away, but he was very active in Britain as a Muslim and trying to promote and help the Muslim community. And he wrote in an article that Britain has, no other country has sponsored and promoted interfaith as much as Britain has. And like I say, it's become an industry. Now, this whole interfaith movement, it looks really nice. Let's just invite people from different religious backgrounds, Sikh, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, and we all get together and we talk about what we've got in common. And of course, the Muslims will be very eager to get people to understand Islam. They'll be so happy that the Christian is interested in listening about Islam, or, you know, the Buddhist is interested in listening about Islam. In actual fact, these interfaith organizations are another branch of the government for collecting information on communities, but also, you know, as a means of getting, let's say, Shia Muslims to work for them. This has happened in Britain. We have Shia Muslims working in the interfaith industry, who of course will be the eyes and ears of the Shia community for the British government. And how does the British government get these people to cooperate? It gives them rewards. So we have Shia Muslims in the community who have an important title they've been given by the government called an OBE, and this means Order of the British Empire. They have been awarded a title as a reward for their cooperation called the Order of the British Empire. I do ask myself, why would a Shia Muslim be proud of having a title with the words British Empire in it? Or another title is MBE, which I can't remember what the M stands for, but again, it's to do with the British Empire. And I have seen Shia Muslims in the Shia community in London very proud of their MBE or their OBE, very proud to have been given this award and title by, you know, the British monarchy. And so again, if we're looking at why Muslim communities are weak, it's not just because of the British, it's because of the people who are working with the British and helping to promote the agenda of the British government. Okay, so if we just move on to the issue of how women are being manipulated, I'm sure everyone here is aware of you know, the very often toxic online presence of a lot of Muslim women who have been successfully brainwashed, we could say, to alter their personalities in order to fit in with today's Western agenda. We know very well that Western governments are now promoting you know, the issue of transgender. So nowadays, if a teacher in a school has a problem with teaching about homosexuality, sexual matters, transgender to children, if there's a teacher that doesn't want to do that, the teacher will lose their job. This happened last week. There was a Christian lady, she was not comfortable teaching her students about sexual acts and transgender, and she lost her job. We have had issues in British schools of one teacher, the homework, and this is a man, the homework that he gave 13-year-old girls to do was to look up different types of pornography. He had a whole list, which I've never even heard of different types of pornography, and they had to go home and search on the net for what those types of pornography were. Well, what are those children going to see when they look on the net, on the internet? And so of course the parents were angry, and the teacher said, "Oh, sorry, I forgot to say that the students should not look on the internet. They should only look at their classwork. I forgot to say that." And I'm sure this teacher knew full well that these children are going to be looking it up online and reaching porn sites, websites, and so on. The parents then complained to the local government, and the local government said, "Not our problem. If you got a problem, you talk to the school." This is what is happening in British schools right now. So we have that. We have pornography being, you know, children essentially being groomed to think that, you know, pornographic material is normal and fine. We have the issue of transgender. So we have more and more Muslim youth getting confused about whether they are male or female. We also have the issue of, you know, the idea of a kind of a trendy, fashionable Muslim woman, let's say. And we have seen this kind of image being promoted across media and in adverts that is trying to turn, you know, hijab into a fashion item, and featuring Muslim women with kind of full makeup and, you know, very decorative hijab and maybe some big earrings coming down, and you know, just whatever, however they dress, kind of minimal type of hijab that they're dressing in, and these type of Muslim women also showing that they support transgender, or you know, they you know, support the agenda of the West. And the agenda of the West at the moment is to make paedophilia normal, is to normalize paedophilia. The agenda of the West is also obviously to support abortion, and a lot of Muslims are also, you know, kind of accepting of that as well. But essentially, aside from these things, the agenda of Western governments is to mold the minds of Muslim women, to make them compliant and accepting of the West's agenda, so that their family links are weakened, you know, we have this idea of the assertive woman. Okay, very good to be assertive, very good to be independent, very important to have your own economic stability, you know, and we want women to be educated. However, there are some subtle personality traits that are being encouraged in Muslim women, which is to sound kind of we could say aggressive, and like, you know, there was that rap song that came out, it was going around, rap song that came out I think last year, I think that was by Sunni women, but they did a rap song about the hypocrisy of a lot of men in the Muslim community. Okay, fine, you might have issues with how men in the Muslim community are behaving, but wearing full makeup and doing a kind of foul-mouthed rap song is not the approach to take to this issue. Another issue of trying to mold and manipulate Muslim women was the promotion of nail varnish that apparently allowed water to permeate through, so you could have your glossy, flashy nail varnish, but still do your wudu and do your salah at the same time. In fact, it was found out that wasn't the case, but it was being promoted like that. And the images that were in those adverts for this were, of course, like Muslim girls who have got full makeup on and are showing off their purple nail varnish or dark red nail varnish, and you know, this is promoting like it's okay to be like this. It's okay to you know, be sexually attractive or to sexualize yourself. That's perfectly okay and perfectly normal. You can be a Muslim woman with hijab, but sexualize yourself at the same time. It was found out about this nail varnish company that was founded by, it was actually a Sunni woman, that she got backing, financial backing for her company from an Israeli businessman. And only when the women found out that the financial backing for her company was coming from an Israeli businessman, that she was forced to close her company. And she was like, oh, I didn't realize, you know, I made a mistake. Oh, you didn't know he was? He's very famous in the, not that I know the makeup industry very well, but I found out he was very famous in the makeup industry. Does an Israeli businessman in his 50s really care about the dignity of Muslim women? No. He's going to be happy to chip away at that dignity and chip away at the strength that Muslim women have in wearing proper hijab. So there's all these attempts to undermine the correct behavior of a Muslim woman, and to make her a kind of product, you know, of the West. I mean, I haven't been, I don't watch these influencers. I don't have time. Obviously, I've heard about this thing of Muslim women called influencers. I mean, why are we even you know, even the idea of someone calling themselves an influencer or something, I mean, doesn't really have an Islamic basis. So these are the issues that we are facing, and that we need to be aware of, and that we need to really help to teach the younger generations, who I know are on social media a lot and are on the receiving end of this brainwashing. And I'm not saying that, you know, any of us are immune from this brainwashing, because you can start to watch something and you can say, well, I know it's not quite right, but you know, they are saying something interesting, so let me carry on watching. But eventually that person will draw you in to their world, and that is going to affect your soul. So if anyone has any questions on this, no, do feel free to ask. But we are sometimes not aware of the very dangerous issues that are surrounding us as a community from east to west. I mean, I would personally advise Muslim parents to, if they can, which I know not all of them can, but as much as possible, do not send your children to Western schools, because you're going to lose your children. So I have seen many Muslim parents in the UK. They have gone through this battle of trying to raise their children in Britain, and put a huge amount of energy into raising their children in that way, only for the children to leave Islam once they, you know, get into their 20s and they get a little bit more independent. Who is the British Muslim I mentioned earlier? Oh God, can't remember. Was that the British Muslim? Oh, who wrote the article? He's called Fuad Nahdi. I have I mean, he's actually a Sunni, but I have a scanned copy of his article. If anyone wants me to send that over, I can inshallah send that over. So what I'm saying is that of course, you know, Muslims want to be accepted. They want to they want to have kind of peaceful and harmonious relations with their government, and they are encouraged to comply and cooperate and so on. And of course, a lot of Shia Muslims have put a lot of energy into saying, you know, we are not Daesh, we are not ISIS, we are peaceful people, not knowing that the British government has a long history of cooperation with organizations like Daesh. And there are books being written on this, it's being researched. British government has a long history of working with Salafi groups and Wahhabi groups, and allowing those types of people to live in the UK and to cultivate their followers. And as one woman said who wrote a book on it, she's called Innes Bowen. I did a review of her book, and her book kind of looks like basically looks like a handbook for the government. You know, she's gone into different Muslim communities and basically collected information about those communities. What do they think? Where do their loyalties lie? Are they loyal to the monarchy or not? This is one of her questions when she was writing this book, which I had to review. She talks about Ikhwan al-Muslimin, as you know, in Egypt, and she said British government has allowed members of Ikhwan al-Muslimin to live in Britain because they provide links and an information link to the Ikhwan Muslimin in Egypt. So there's a writer called Mark Curtis. Now, he's not always totally accurate, but he has written a series of books on the British cooperation with these groups. So on the one hand, we have the British government working quite happily with these groups, but on the other hand, putting pressure on Muslims and saying, you've got to come out and you've got to prove that you don't support extremism. And here's the Shia coming out, you know, in Ashura saying we don't support Daesh and we are against ISIS and we are peaceful people. And we, you know, we're good Muslims living under, you know, British rule, when actually the British themselves are the ones who are cooperating with Daesh, with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda, with Ikhwan Muslimin. So, like I said, you know, this is just an awareness that I wanted to raise. So maybe, inshallah, I will finish in about 10 minutes. I wanted to just move on to a topic on, you know, women's behavior around non-mahrams. Now, I know this sounds like, I mean, I get really, really tired of just how many lectures there are on hijab, and I'm sure many women are also really exhausted with all these lectures on hijab. But the reason I'm raising this point is because what I have observed when I have been around Muslim women who are in the presence of non-mahrams is that sometimes because, you know, the behavior of Muslim women does get affected by today's agenda. I won't just say the West, culture of the West, it gets affected by media, let's say. So overall, Muslim women of all ages, not just young, it can be all ages going up to 60, have become accustomed to behaving and speaking in quite a free and direct way. This is just my personal opinion observation. I'm not criticizing anyone. It's first a reminder to myself. I would love to be able to improve on my akhlaq, and you know, and I'm sure I have made many mistakes in the past in my own conduct. And I'm just saying this because obviously I care about the condition of our communities and the honor of our Muslim women in those communities. So my observation on quite a few occasions has been that when Muslim women say get together, you know, in an environment where it could be a work environment, or I don't know, maybe on ziyarah as an example, and they are talking together, sometimes because they are focusing on each other in their discussions, and they are talking very freely and openly, sometimes they lose their awareness that there are non-mahram men present. And sometimes Muslim women are not aware. Okay, Muslim women, they want to be respected by men. We know we have thousands of conversations on social media about how Muslim women feel upset because they're not being respected by Muslim men. But at the same time, and I'm not putting all the onus on Muslim women at all, no. You know, men and women both have their responsibility. But from my observation, we need to be aware of how we conduct ourselves if non-mahrams are within earshot of our conversation. You know, we should have this kind of dignity and privacy in our conduct. I've also been in work environments where women have got together and they are laughing and joking, even making, astaghfirullah, vulgar jokes. I mean, you know, it descends into a kind of a habit of making vulgar jokes. And either they're not aware or they don't care that they can be overheard by non-mahram men. So what are those non-mahram men going to be thinking about a group of women who are having a kind of a very personal, free discussion without a lot of akhlaq, you know, among themselves, and that these women are not showing dignity in front of the presence of non-mahram men. So don't think that just because the man is not saying anything or he's keeping silent, don't think that he's not aware of the conduct of women. So I've just noticed this on quite a few occasions, and so this is why I'm raising it, that we need to raise our own standard of conduct in public. We need to be aware that we are around non-mahram men, and to have the kind of conduct that that man would feel proud of if he were to see a group of Muslim women together, and they are careful and respectful in the way they behave in front of him, because that's showing respect for him, from the way they are being careful in the way they speak, then that is going to likewise make him feel proud. These are my mu'minat, sisters. I'm so proud of how these Muslim women are behaving. They've got the good conduct and good akhlaq. They are showing respect for my presence. I mean, would we like it if we are in the presence of a group of men, say, and they start to make vulgar jokes in front of us, and they show complete disregard for our presence? So the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they have said, even Imam Ali alayhi salam, he has said that even between friends there is a veil, there is a hijab between two friends which should be maintained. So that means that even between two friends, you don't lower the tone of the conversation between you. You don't kind of make it a habit to get into vulgar conversation without any akhlaq. Because otherwise, if we get into the habit of this kind of conversation, that's going to slip out into other circumstances that we are in, or other with other people that we are interacting with. So we're trying to obviously improve our world and improve our Islamic culture, improve ourselves, and especially in light of the fact that there is a lot of heavy brainwashing going on directed at Muslim women, as there always has been for the last 150 years, so that Muslim women's personalities are becoming are changing and being molded and altered to kind of throw out a lot of the classical akhlaq and behave in a very free way without the akhlaq or the respect. Because of this, even if we're wearing hijab, even if we're wearing chador, that doesn't guarantee that we're behaving as a mu'minah. That it's not sufficient just for us to wear hijab, but then to have a vulgar conversation, or to kind of be cackling with laughter, over some kind of crass jokes in front of non-mahram men. So this is where I want to kind of conclude my talk, and this is to try to help us all kind of, inshallah, improve our Islamic culture and promote a kind of a greater spirituality in our communities, and to try to reduce this kind of materialistic mentality that is being developed in our communities, by the media. So thank you for listening. If anyone has any questions, I don't know, the host, if we're taking questions. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.